Home from college at the time, decided that she could help, and that one of the things she knew was they were going to. She actually knew that since she was a college student who was out, she could stay up all night and work at one of the relief shelters. And one of the things they quickly learned was that people who had been through May 3rd, 1999, asked for different things than the people who had not been through May 3rd. The May 3rd veterans came through and asked for plastic bags so that they could collect all of their stuff that wasn't destroyed and not lose it. The other people would come in and ask for clothes. And meanwhile, all of the stuff that was still back in their damaged house would get rained on. And she said they started to learn who the veterans were, and they started trying to advise people. And my daughter, by 4 a.m. the next morning, was the head clothes size sorter at the relief center on the north side of Norman.
The storm still, and we see now that in this period we're jumping to 640,000 tweets. And during the storm, remember, the tweet rate was about 839 per minute. Now we're well over 1,200 tweets per minute. Again, we see that these are mostly by individuals like me and you, and some organizations, although organizations were less pronounced. The map, as you can see, if you remember the map from during the tornado, the tweets were very concentrated to that Moore tornado area. And now they've essentially exploded to most of the population centers throughout the country. Now talking about tornadoes, mostly in reference to what had happened in the city of Moore. The top tweet now had shifted from discussion of, the tornado being on the ground to now best way to help tornado victims is to donate to the Red Cross. And we see this idea of sort of moving from response to recovery and relief, again here in this word cloud. Now instead of, tornado warning on ground moving through Moore, we see help, city, Moore, victims, prayers. Pray for pray for Oklahoma, school. And here we're talking now about people sending messages on social media about how to help the people that were affected by the tornado.
So Harold mentioned that the second emergency search and rescue sweep was completed about at midnight, and just prior to midnight, for those of you that may not have been in Norman, the news reports were coming fast and furious about how many people had died. This was pretty much the highest number that I think Harold took note of 91 dead and 120 injured, which is about 3.8 times higher than the actual death toll, and about, at least this injury number is about 30%. NIST reported 387 injuries in total, and I think some of those might be indirect. A more likely number somewhere in the 200s, 200 something. Cue the button pusher, which is why I probably didn't need to remember that. So the media coverage is pretty awful. I know personally I had to go to bed. I couldn't listen anymore. Once the number got to 50, that was it for me. Lights out. It was just time to go to sleep. Try and figure out what I can do the next day and go back to work and do our hazardous weather test bed experiment.
And from my perspective, as someone who's dealt with historic death tolls over the years, in the state of Oklahoma, prior to this event, the state medical examiner was incredibly cautious about numbers getting out of the Office of Estimated Death Tolls. So that when I heard a 91, the impression I got was that was a number coming out of the medical examiner's office, which was a number that was really hard for me to believe. And it wasn't until about 9:30 the next morning that the death toll got reduced down to 23. And it ended up being 24 eventually when someone died later.
So the next day on social media, I actually wish I had a different. My other map was a world map. So now instead of over 1,000 per minute, we're talking now at about 500 per minute. That's still pretty high if you compare it to an average of about 30 per minute during normal periods of time. Again, we're talking mostly individuals, some organizations, but not as many as is other times. And again, we see that the messages are largely about recovery and relief. The top tweet at that time, one of my personal favorites, Kevin Durant, has donated $1 million to the Red Cross for tornado relief. That thing was tweeted tons and tons of times, and I think in part put pressure on other organizations and people in the area to donate money to the Red Cross. So we thank him for his efforts. And again, mostly you can see similar things reflected in the word cloud. You see Durant, Kevin, relief, victims, help, million affected. One of my favorites is over here in the corner where it says dog. If you were following social media that day or the media in general, there was this great video of a woman who had been interviewed. And during the interview, her house had been destroyed. And during the interview, she was talking, and she had assumed that her dog had died. But during the interview, her dog sort of wiggled out and came running from underneath the rubble. It's a fantastic video and story. But it was all over social media on this day after period.
And then people began cleaning up. And the circled individual there is Bob Stoops, the OU football coach, who actually was working for 30 minutes before anybody recognized him. He lives about 4 miles from the tornado, and when they asked him what he was doing, he said, "I just showed up to help the people who live around me," and made no deal out of it. But that was also, when that got out, that was another thing that a whole bunch of other people decided, if Bob can do it, I can get my gloves on and I can go up and help. And that was one of the things that he didn't make a big deal about it, but he showed up and helped out with the neighbors. And by this point, we're now 20.
It was just that constant feeling of hopelessness and wanting to give up, and then just within a second of that feeling of despair, a call, a text, a Facebook post, something that just said, "You can do this, we're here to help, we're ready, we're coming."
This debris removal is a huge, huge thing, and that's important to the community to get that stuff gone, just from the looks of how it looks. It looks so scarred and so bad out there now. But when that debris is gone, that'll begin to fade away, and it'll be an opportunity for a lot now to be built on.
Serve More is just a volunteer organization that kind of popped up on May 21st, and it just started with me and my neighborhood just wanting to come and see how on earth we could start helping some of the folks that live here. The word got out pretty quickly, and we started getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages, Facebook, Twitter, just letting people know, hey, this is where we're at, we could use a lot more help. And as we said that, a lot more help came, and people started showing up kind of out of nowhere. It was Tuesday afternoon that as we started working, just as this thing started to come together, Todd Jensen from Parks Department said, would it be possible for us to get some of your volunteers to come help with the cemetery work? So we said, yeah, let's do what we can to get a couple hundred, maybe 300 volunteers if we could. We said we'd shoot for 300, and that morning we gathered in this gym, and the place was packed. And it looked to us like maybe 600 people or so were packed into this gym, and then we realized outside the front doors people were standing outside because they couldn't get in. We've had over 10,000 volunteers come through these doors that are from all over the United States that just packed up their car and brought their rakes and their shovels and their wheelbarrows and came on down and have just been here to help out.
So you're going to be the team leader?
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay, then I'm going to have you sign in.
Okay. We're not professionals, we just live here. And we've just seen this incredible thing that it just feels like God has built around us, because we just showed up and said we want to serve our city and we want to serve families. It's been really special to have organizations like the Red Cross and FEMA and AmeriCorps come in and say, hey, we heard you guys are leading the charge. How do we come alongside you and help you? Who are you guys? And we just get to say, we're just a collection of local churches. We live here. This is our city and we love it and we're here to serve it.